Welcome in, everyone, and a special welcome to you, our listener.
Yes, absolutely. Welcome.
Grab a seat, get comfortable, and really just treat this like you're sitting down with us for a truly fascinating study session.
A very deep study session today.
Exactly. Because the day's mission is all about mapping the anatomy of a creative breakthrough. We are looking at that elusive aha moment.
That incredible sudden flash of insight.
Right, where a really complex concept just suddenly clicks into place. But to explore this, we aren't pulling from some dense cognitive science textbook.
No, we're taking a much more interesting route.
We really are. Our source material today is actually a piece of music. Specifically, we're diving into the lyrics of an acoustic pop song titled Mureka, performed by an artist who goes by the exact same name, Mureka.
It is definitely an unconventional lens, but a remarkably precise one, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah, because while music inherently operates on an emotional level, the lyrics of this particular track provide an almost clinical roadmap.
a roadmap of the psychological journey, right?
Exactly. The psychological journey we all take when we're trying to conquer really difficult information.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because the song, it really doesn't ease you in. It drops us right into the friction.
Right into the thick of it.
Yeah, starting exactly where so many of us find ourselves when trying to learn something difficult. The track opens with these vocalizations.
The yeah, whoa, oh, oh part.
Right, setting this very moody acoustic atmosphere right off the bat. And then we get the opening lyric, 3:0 a.m., staring at my phone again.
Which is such a vivid image.
It is. You know the feeling. You were trying to solve a problem, you can't sleep, and there you are in the dark with that blue light just hitting your face.
What's fascinating here is how immediately the artist grounds us in a modern, instantly recognizable state of cognitive blockage. The phone acts as a really powerful symbol here. It represents digital distraction, certainly, but at 3:00 a.m.,
It's something else at 3:0 a.m.
it is a symbol of the futile search for easy answers. When your brain is heavily taxed, it seeks low-friction cognitive closure.
Meaning we just want the answer handed to us.
Precisely. We reach for our devices, hoping the answer will magically appear in a quick search, completely attempting to bypass the actual heavy lifting of learning.
Bypassing the heavy lifting is a great way to frame it, because the very next lines, they describe the physical reality of that stalled process.
Right. The scattered notes.
Yeah, the lyrics are, notes scattered everywhere, but my mind's a jumbled mess. I mean, think about trying to master a complex financial model or learning a new programming language.
It's overwhelming.
Completely.
Yeah.
You have the raw data physically present around you, but without an underlying structure, all that information is just noise.
You are describing the absolute peak of cognitive load.
The breaking point.
Yeah. In the modern learning experience, we rarely suffer from a lack of information, right? We suffer from an inability to synthesize it.
Yeah, the jumbled mess feeling.
Exactly. The mental toll of that jumbled mess is severe because human working memory has strict limitations. When you're staring at all those disparate facts, your working memory is completely maxed out. What hasn't happened yet is the formation of a mental schema.
And a mental schema, just to clarify, that's essentially the brain's internal filing system, right?
That's a great way to put it.
Like the framework it uses to group related ideas together, so you don't have to process every single variable individually.
Precisely. Without that schema, every single piece of information demands equal processing power.
Which is exhausting.
It is. It's the classic state of information overload that precedes synthesis. You have to gather all the messy pieces and just hold them in your working memory before the brain can begin to build a bridge between them.
Which brings us to the next lyric, and it captures the exact feeling of lacking that framework.
The missing thread.
Yes. The artist sings, "Can't find the thread that ties it all together." It's like sitting at a table with 1,000 jigsaw puzzle pieces dumped out in front of you.
But you don't have the box.
Exactly. The box cover is missing. You have all the parts, but no guiding image of the big picture.
And that missing box cover is the missing context. The song transitions beautifully here, I think, from the internal cognitive struggle to how that bottleneck bleeds out into our physical reality.
Oh, absolutely.
Because mental blockages of this magnitude, they rarely stay contained just in the mind. The physiological response to severe cognitive strain is quite profound.
And the lyrics go right there. The very next lines are,
Yeah.
pacing back and forth across the room, same four walls I've seen 1,000 times.
Right.
So the phone is down, the raw data is on the desk, and now the physical movement just totally takes over.
If we connect this to the bigger picture,
Please do.
we have to look at why mental frustration inevitably manifests as physical restlessness. Why do we pace when we are thinking hard or when we're stuck?
I always just thought it was nervous energy.
It's more than just nervous energy. When the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain handling complex problem solving, when it hits a bottleneck, it creates an internal stress response,
A literal stress response.
a literal stress response. The brain is burning calories, it's trying to forge neural pathways, failing, and trying again.
Wow.
And this intense internal friction triggers the release of mild stress hormones, like cortisol and adrenaline.
Which translates into physical movement.
Exactly. Pacing might even be an evolutionary mechanism to increase blood flow and oxygen to a heavily taxed brain.
That makes the pacing feel way less like a nervous habit and more like a biological survival tactic.
It really is.
But the genius of this lyric is the addition of the same four walls I've seen 1,000 times. It introduces this really profound sense of claustrophobia.
Yes, because the pacing represents the active, kinetic attempt to solve the problem, while those boundaries symbolize the feeling of being trapped in a stagnant loop of thought.
Like you're physically moving, but mentally.
Mentally, you are bouncing off the exact same limitations over and over again. You are boxed in by your own current level of understanding. The room becomes a physical manifestation of the mental block.
It's a mental prison made of unstructured information and drywall.
That's very poetic, but yes.
And at this stage, looking at those boundaries and feeling the exhaustion of 3:20 a.m., I mean, the impulse to simply walk away is overwhelming.
Of course it is.
But the narrative of the song pivots right when the frustration hits its absolute peak.
The breaking point literally becomes the foundation for the breakthrough.
Yes. The lyrics shift so gracefully here. Then something shifts a tiny spark. I feel it coming on.
Mm-hmm.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Notice how the artist describes this transition. It isn't some massive, blinding explosion of light.
It's not a thunderbolt.
Right, it's not a thunderbolt from the heavens. It is a tiny spark. It is incredibly subtle at first. The anticipation builds before the full answer arrives, as the brain just suddenly recognizes the faint outline of a pattern.
And that subtlety is remarkably accurate to the neuroscience of sudden insight. The aha moment is always preceded by an incubation period.
An incubation period.
Yes, but what is vital to observe in the structure of the track is the timeline. This tiny spark only occurs after the agonizing pacing.
Yeah.
It happens after the intense focus on the raw data. It happens after the 3:0 a.m. frustration.
But wait, let me push back on that timeline for a second.
Okay, go ahead.
The artist places this spark right after the exhaustion. But does cognitive psychology actually dictate that we must hit a wall of suffering to achieve clarity?
I see where you're going with this.
Because anecdotally, people always talk about shower thoughts. You know, those sudden, brilliant insights that happen when you are completely relaxed, not thinking about the problem at all.
Right, right.
So is the 3 a.m. wall really a prerequisite? Or can we just skip the pain and go to the relaxing shower?
This raises an important question, and it touches on one of the most fascinating paradoxes of human cognition.
Okay.
The short answer is, you cannot skip the 3.0 A wall.
Oh, really?
Really. The relaxation of the shower thought only works if you have already front-loaded the intense cognitive labor.
So you have to do the work first.
You have to. To understand why, we have to look at two different networks in the brain. When you are intensely focusing, pacing, and staring at your data, you are using the brain's executive control network.
Okay, the executive control network.
It is highly analytical, but it is also very rigid. It tries to force the information down familiar, established pathways.
So the executive network is essentially the brain pacing within the same four walls.
That's a perfect analogy.
It keeps trying the same solutions because that is what it already knows.
Precisely. It is taking the path of least resistance based on your past experiences, but when you are trying to learn something entirely new, those old pathways simply won't work.
Which brings us to the second network.
Yes, the default mode network, or DMN. The DMN is active when your mind is wandering, daydreaming, or just simply resting, like in the shower.
Oh, I see.
And it is incredibly skilled at making distant, unusual connections between seemingly unrelated pieces of information.
Taking that a step further, the exhaustion is actually the mechanism that forces the handoff between these two networks.
Oh.
The executive network basically refuses to give up control until it is completely depleted.
That is the absolute core of it. You hit the wall of total exhaustion, your executive network finally surrenders, and your default mode network takes over the processing in the background.
And that's the incubation period.
Yes, the tiny spark the artist describes is the exact moment the DMN finally connects the disparate facts into a coherent mental schema and prepares to hand the solution back to your conscious awareness.
Wow.
You cannot have the subconscious breakthrough without first providing the brain with the raw data through intense conscious frustration.
That shifts the perspective entirely. The suffering isn't a sign of failure.
Not at all.
It is the mandatory data loading phase. And once that tiny spark catches from the DMN's background work, the song takes us right into the climax of the experience.
The chorus.
A chorus hits, and the artist just belts out, Mureka, Mureka, everything unlocked, everything unblocks. So what does this all mean?
It's a huge moment.
It really is. Let's look at that word. Mureka?
Yeah.
It's the title of the track, it's the name of the artist, and it's the absolute focal point of the chorus.
It is a brilliant linguistic pivot.
Right. We are all familiar with the ancient cry, Eureka, meaning, I have found it. The legend of Archimedes shouting it as he figured out water displacement in the bathtub.
Very famous story.
It's baked into our cultural understanding of discovery. But the artist here has personalized it. It isn't just Eureka, it's Mureka.
Right. It's my Eureka.
Yes, it is a deeply personal, triumphant claim of ownership over the new mental model. And when that moment hits, the lyrics explicitly state the result. Everything unlocks, everything unblocks.
The boundaries are gone.
Exactly. The limitations of those four walls just evaporate.
The song brilliantly deconstructs this final transformation into two distinct resolutions. The first is the intellectual resolution.
Okay.
The subsequent lyric is, what was chaos turned to clarity? This directly resolves the tension of the opening verse.
The jumbled mess.
Exactly. The jumbled mind and the unstructured data have finally found their architecture. The missing thread has been located, the puzzle box cover has been revealed, and the intellect is satisfied.
So the raw, chaotic variables have been transformed into usable knowledge.
Chaos to clarity.
Chaos to clarity is a beautifully concise way to summarize the formation of a mental schema. But solving a massively complex problem doesn't stop at just the intellectual level.
No, it certainly doesn't.
It's a profoundly emotional and physiological experience as well.
Which brings us to the second resolution. After the intellectual clarity comes the emotional release. Freedom rushing over me, I'm finally free.
That idea of freedom rushing over me is a massive statement. And we really have to look at the genre context here to fully appreciate how the art mirrors the science.
The acoustic pop genre.
Yeah, just picture how acoustic pop operates. During the verses, you typically have a stripped-down, tight, finger-picked acoustic guitar.
It's very contained.
Very contained, it feels close, tense, rhythmic. It perfectly mimics the claustrophobia of pacing the room. But when you hit a chorus about freedom rushing over you, this sonic landscape entirely expands.
The strumming opens up.
The strumming opens up, the instrumentation layers, and the vocals soar. The actual structure of the music is mimicking the feeling of mental liberation.
And that sonic expansion beautifully maps to the neurochemistry of the brain during an aha moment.
Really? How so?
Well, why does it actually feel like freedom? Why does it feel like a rush? From an evolutionary biology standpoint, understanding your environment through pattern recognition is vital for survival.
Makes sense.
So when your default mode network successfully builds a new, accurate mental schema, the brain rewards you for that survival-enhancing behavior.
It gives you a reward.
A huge reward. It floods your system with dopamine and endogenous opioids.
So that rush of freedom isn't just a poetic metaphor.
Not at all.
It is a literal neurochemical high. Your brain is chemically paying you for figuring out the puzzle.
It is a profound physiological reward. Furthermore, neuroscientists mapping brain waves during these moments of sudden insight observe a very distinct shift.
What kind of shift?
The tension of the problem-solving phase, which is characterized by fast, anxious beta waves, suddenly gives way to a burst of high-frequency gamma waves in the right hemisphere of the brain.
Gamma waves.
Gamma waves. They correlate with the sudden synchronization of previously distinct neural networks.
Wow.
So the expansive, rushing acoustic chorus of the song is an almost perfect auditory representation of those neural networks suddenly firing in unison.
The music is literally playing the sound of gamma waves synchronizing.
That's a fantastic way to look at it.
That makes the grueling toll, the 3.0 AM frustration, seem entirely worth it.
It fundamentally reframes the way we should view cognitive friction.
It really does. So, for you listening, let's take a quick walk back through the architecture of this breakthrough,
Yeah.
as mapped out by Mureka, because it is a journey you have inevitably taken and one you will certainly take again. We started at the absolute bottom, the 3.0 AM wall, seeking the low friction out on the phone, surrounded by unstructured data and bearing the heavy cognitive load of a jumbled mind.
The hardest part.
The hardest part. From there, we moved into the physical manifestation of that bottleneck, the pacing, the stress response of the motor cortex, and the feeling of being trapped within the boundaries of your current limitations.
The essential data gathering phase.
Exactly, the phase where you are exhausting the executive control network. Because out of that necessary exhaustion comes the handoff to the default mode network.
The incubation.
The incubation, the tiny spark, the subtle anticipation where the subconscious finally starts to align the pieces, and that spark ignites the climax. The personal Mureka moment.
A breakthrough.
The profound transformation where intellectual chaos turns into crystal clear clarity, accompanied instantly by the evolutionary neurochemical reward, the dopamine rush of freedom.
Ultimately, the most crucial takeaway from our deep dive into this acoustic track is the shift in perspective regarding the learning process.
Yeah, changing how we see the struggle.
Exactly. The chaos, the unstructured data, the pacing, the intense feeling of being fundamentally stuckly. These are not indicators that you lack the capacity to understand.
They aren't signs of failure.
They are the mandatory physiological and psychological stepping stones on the path to genuine clarity. You cannot experience the rushing freedom of the newly synchronized mental schema without first providing the brain with the raw materials through intense frustration.
Next time I find myself staring at a jumbled mess of data, feeling like my working memory is about to crash, I'm going to try to remember that I'm just in the tense acoustic verse and the expansive chorus is coming.
That's the perfect mindset.
But before we wrap up today's study session, we always like to leave you with something to chew on.
Indeed. We have thoroughly mapped the journey to the breakthrough, but the lyrics leave us with a lingering concept to analyze.
What's that?
While the song ends on this beautiful, triumphant note of arrival, I'm finally free.
Yeah, great ending.
It implies a permanent state of resolution. But considering the cyclical nature of learning, of mastering new skills, of scientific discovery itself, does this Mureka moment actually represent a permanent freedom?
Oh, why is
Or does unlocking this one specific door simply grant us the freedom to walk into a brand new, much larger room?
a whole new room?
A room where we will inevitably gather a completely new set of complex variables, face a higher level of cognitive load, and eventually begin the 3/4 head AM pacing all over again.
Opening a door just to find a bigger room with a harder puzzle. That is a brilliant and slightly intimidating thought to leave on. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the anatomy of an epiphany. We hope it brought a new level of clarity to your own learning journey. So to you, our listener, the next time you find yourself pacing the same four walls and staring at raw data, don't walk away. Embrace the necessary chaos, trust your brain's background processing to find the tiny spark, and get ready for your own Mureka moment. Until next time, keep diving deep.